Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jonah. I am here with Discover, and we are super excited to have Mike Rusell today. He's going to be talking about podcasting, how to, and all the ways you can make it better. But before we get started, I do want to just call out a little, please pop into the comments. Let us know if you can hear us and see us all right. Mike, if you can give everyone a little wave and hello, just so we can double check your audio and video there.
Hello, the very famous audio check, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Is it on?
We got you. And yeah, feel free as well to call out where you're tuning in from. We love to hear that, maybe how you heard about Mike or Discover. We also love to know those things. We're going to be setting a couple expectations for today. If Mike is moving fast, I know he's going to try and cover a lot of material, or you have to step away from the computer for a minute. Don't worry, there will be a replay available both on the YouTube page. It'll also be emailed to you with the course offer, and it'll also be on the Discover sign up page. So don't fret if you feel like you have to leave for a second. All of this will be available for you later. Also, we will have a formal Q&A after the presentation. So if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to throw them in the comments. We'll try to get to those later, but if you can hold on to them in that dedicated Q&A, we will really get into the weeds with it. Just looking here, we have some folks tuning in from Ohio, which is awesome. Some other folks sounds like we look and sound great. That is always nice to hear. All right, it looks like we're rolling here. So Mike, I'm going to hand over this to you. Let you take it away.
All right, Jonah, thanks so much. It's great to be here, and I'm really excited to do this online learning with Teachable Discover. So yeah, as Jonah says, please do get your questions in the comments as I go along. I'm going to go through for the next best part of an hour. But first of all, you might be saying, hang on, who is this Mike Rusell guy, and who is he to tell me about podcasting and audio editing tricks and things like that? So I have a YouTube channel. It's at youtube.com/musicradiocreative. We're just coming up on 238,000 subscribers there. So really excited about that. I'm an Adobe certified professional in audio and video. And I also teach around the world. Used to travel a lot more before the whole pandemic happened. But yeah, I've been out to places like national radio stations, universities to teach audio, and particularly audio with the tangent of making things sound good and as good as they possibly can. So if you're in a room with lots of echo, if you've got a lot of background noise, if you've got a fan like whirring away, that kind of thing, or if you just need to set up a room so it sounds pretty good, then that is what I help with. And that is what I'm going to hopefully help you with in this next hour. So the workshop is going to take about 40 to 45 minutes. As Jonah mentioned, we're really going to get into the weeds. We're really going to go into those questions and deep dive as much as possible for the last 15 minutes. That'll be at 1:45 the hour. And there is definitely a reason to stick around until the end because I'm going to share 3 killer tips with you that will speed up your podcast editing, that will help you to restore audio you possibly thought was completely broken. You may have had that when you've recorded, particularly on the field with a portable recorder, and you've got really terrible audio. I'm going to show you something really cool. And I'll also show you how to remove really, really interesting sounds from audio. But all of that is coming up towards the end. Right now, we'll get started with the introduction, you could say, to audio editing and podcast editing. And here we are in my audio editor of choice. This is Adobe Audition. This is what I use most of the time. I find it very simple, very easy to use. Lots of other options out there. Obviously, if you want to get started for free, Audacity is a good choice. Also, a lot of podcasters use Reaper as well. If you come from a music background, you might be using Logic or FL Studio or something like that. But just find an editor that you gel with. And for me, I'm working in Adobe Audition. But many of these tips I'm going to show you in the next 40 or so minutes will all work in different editors. So many of the principles you'll be learning will work in different editors. So first of all, I've got a clip here, and I'm going to play it. And if you could just let me know in the comments that you can hear the audio I play, this is the big test, we'll check that everything is working. So I'm going to play some audio and just put a +1 in the comments if you can hear this audio.
He's leading and accountable for the strategy, maintenance, integrity, value for money, and continuous improvement of the Department of Work and Pensions Information Technology Services and Systems. A huge job, and I'm looking forward to meeting him.
Okay, hopefully you can hear that audio, and I'll look out for your +1s in the comments. Now, you may notice that this audio was recorded over the internet. In fact, this audio was recorded over Zoom. Thank you for the +1s. I can see that the audio is coming across loud and clear. Obviously, during the pandemic, many of us have turned to software like Zoom, Skype, Google Meet, all of that kind of stuff to actually record our interviews, our podcast episodes. But as you'll notice here,
he's leading an account,
right there,
leading an account,
and
integrity,
there,
integrity,
we have some issues there. It's that digital glitching, and I wanted to show you first and foremost how you quickly clean that kind of stuff up. Now, you can do it here in the waveform view of Adobe Audition. This works the same in many audio editors. You can zoom in, you can select, and you can delete audio. So I'm going to show you, first of all, in the waveform, and an even smoother way in another view that will work even better as we move on to more advanced editing techniques.
He's leading an,
so here, we've got this. We've got that digital glitch. So I'm just going to delete there and then go back and play.
He's leading and accountable for the strategy, maintenance, integrity.
And there's another glitch. Again, if I just delete here.
Maintenance, integrity, value for money.
Okay, and that audio is pretty much fixed. So digital glitches, very easy to fix with a quick delete there. Sometimes you believe that it's not possible to fix them, but it absolutely is. Now, I'm going to go into a multi-track session, and I'm going to start with a blank template, and we'll call this podcasts. So this is the multi-track of Adobe Audition. This is what we'll be using most of the time to mix audio together. And the reason for that is that you can actually mix multiple different audio clips together. So I could go ahead and get my Zoom call in here with the glitches back in, and I can actually make a cut around here. What I can actually do is budge this audio up by grabbing the title, and I get a little crossfade there. Can you see this little orange lines here? That's fading out and fading in there. And it's just a smoother way of doing your editing.
He's leading and accountable for the strategy, maintenance, integrity.
And there's another little glitch. So again, deleting the digital glitch and crossfading it.
Maintenance, integrity, value for money.
And everything is sounding much better. So that's the first thing that is really helpful. The next thing is just making audio sound as good as it possibly can. And there are a few ways you can do this, but mainly I'd like to talk a little bit about compression and EQ, particularly if you're working with a call that came in over the internet, because that's really difficult. Already your quality is lower than it would be if you're recording on a professional microphone. So I'm going to go into the effects rack, and I'm going to look at track number 1 here. And I'm just going to go ahead and add on a little bit of compression by going into the effects rack over here, amplitude and compression dynamics. And we'll start from a default view here. We'll switch on the compressor. We'll leave all these, and I might go into these in more detail in a moment. But for now, I'm just going to push this ratio up. And what you'll see is some red lights turning on as I play back.
He's leading and accountable for the strategy, maintenance, integrity, value for money, and continuous improvement of the Department of Work and Pensions Information.
And what I'm doing is I'm simply saying to this compressor, any audio that goes above this volume level, compress it by a ratio of 2:1. So essentially cut any audio that goes above -16 dB in half. And again, I could go ahead and put on some EQ. So we'll go to filter and EQ, parametric equalizer. Again, starting from a default here, I can put on something known as a high pass filter. And as I start to push this up,
he's leading and accountable for the strategy, maintenance, integrity.
You'll hear how it cuts out the low end, the bass of the voice. Now, obviously, we don't want to go too far with this, but where this can really work well with your podcasts is if you have a lot of plosives. So if you don't have a pop filter, like I've got in front of me, you'll notice I have this big lollipop pop filter, because without it, I would sound awful. I'd be popping the microphone all the time. High pass filter can help eliminate things like that. also wind rumble, road noise, sounds of planes and trains and things like that. Even some aircon systems as well can be eliminated with high-pass filters. So let's have a play with this. The idea is to push it up just enough that you hear it kicking in and then pull it back a bit.
He's leading and accountable for the strategy, maintenance, integrity, value for money, and continuous improvement.
And you'll actually notice
Value for money and continuous improvement.
there is a little plosive there.
Improvement.
So I'm pushing that high pass filter up just to filter that a little bit, but we'll come back to that little pop there that's going on right there. Meanwhile, I'm just going to put a bit more EQ in.
Of the Department of Work and Pensions.
Now you'll notice there's really no audio above sort of 10K or maybe 12K here because it is a call recorded over the internet. Some of the frequencies have been lost there. I'm going to push up a little bit on the high end.
Of the Department of Work and Pensions Information Technology Services.
And as I push that up, obviously just to the extreme there, you can hear it kicking in.
Department of Work and Pensions Information Technology.
And then I can go through if I want, and I can pull some other notches up. I can use the Q width to make this smaller, and I can actually scan through for frequencies to enhance or remove.
Of the Department of Work and Pensions Information Technology Services and Systems.
And then I could go ahead and say, pull out some of the audio there.
Department of Work and Pensions Information.
So it's just little EQ tips, little compression tips, just to make that audio sound a little clearer, a little better. Now, going back to just here, if we look at that little section here, so he's popped on the microphone. The way we can really visually see this is bringing up something called Spectral Frequency Display. It's this icon here at the top, or hitting Shift and D on your keyboard. And you'll see, particularly down at the low end, there's a lot of yellow here for bass. Now, there are a couple of ways you can do this. I'm going to show you one way later on when we get into some advanced noise reduction towards the end. But for now, another way of getting rid of that pop. And you can see most of the distortion on that P there is sort of around here. And you can actually just clip a little bit of that out. And that doesn't really deteriorate the word, but it does start to improve that popping sound on the P. And again, I'm maybe going to move it in a bit more, see how much I can get away with there. Maybe just a tiny bit more. There we go. And then zoom out.
Value for money and continuous improvement.
There we go. And we've kind of lost that sort of real popping sound happening there on the P. So please do keep your questions coming in. If you have any questions at all you'd like me to answer towards the end of this session, be delighted to do so. So anything that comes to your mind or any problems you're having with audio right now, do let me know in the chat. Meanwhile, we'll go back and we'll look at some other audio. So we've already looked at just generally improving calls that come in over the internet that have digital glitches, a little bit of compression and EQ. But one of the big things that can happen with audio, and you could see this actually here in the waveform, if you edit podcasts for a while, you'll recognize what breaths look like. Here they are. They're all here, here, here in the audio. And if I play, you'll hear there, there, and there. So you can choose to maybe eliminate the breaths or get rid of the background noise. If I hit Shift and D again, you'll actually see when the speaker is not speaking, here in the spectral frequency display, there is still color indicating there's still noise. Now, the way this works, unlike the waveform view, where you have basically the loudness of the audio, the louder the audio is, the bigger the waveform, and the quieter it is, the smaller. Well, here we've got a heat map for all the frequencies. So down the bottom is the bass, this is the mid-range, and up the top is the high end. And ideally, in between the speech, you want it all to be black. You want it to be silent. And where introducing something like a noise gate that I'm going to tell you about in just a moment can be handy is when you either have breaths that are way too loud, or you have maybe a fan going on in the background, or just background noise you really want to get rid of. So I'm going to show you a really cool technique to set up a noise gate really well in Adobe Audition and other audio editors to really make the best of the recorded audio. What I'm going to do in order to do this is just go back to waveform view for a second. I'm going to copy this And I'm going to go to a new file so I can make a little edit. And we'll put this in here. Okay, so we've got silence is here, 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 and here. So everywhere we can see there is not speech, I'm going to cut it so that we've just got silence, or what you may refer to or hear referred to as the noise floor. So I'm going to do it with breaths included so I can show you how a noise gate can filter out breaths. And when I've deleted all of the speech and we're just left with those breaths and the background noise, I'll tell you a little bit more about noise gates and how they work. There we go.
And it's right in your head.
So this is our speaker, and this is the background noise and the breaths. So let's play all of that. So noise gates, let's talk about them. Let's find out exactly what a noise gate is and how it works. So a noise gate, quite simply, works as a gate for audio, just as a gate would in real life. A gate will open to let you through and close if it doesn't want you to come through, if it's an automated gate, maybe. So the idea with a noise gate is you set it up at a certain level and you say any audio that's louder than this, the gate opens, the audio can be heard. And any audio that's quieter than the certain level I set, the gate will then snap closed, or you can make it a more easy close if you don't want it to sound so harsh, and that audio will not be heard. So that's all very well, and I could go and set up a noise gate, but first of all, we need to know some numbers. So let me show you. So I'm going to hang on to this. I'm actually going to save this. Let's put this into a folder here, and we'll just call this noise floor. So we've got that there. And we'll go back to our original audio. So with a noise gate, I would go ahead, go to my effects rack, find amplitude and compression dynamics. And again, over here, we've got auto gate. Now, if I set this by default, let's go to a preview window so you can see before and after, and we'll switch on spectral frequency display. With the current settings, you'll see it cuts out quite a lot of audio, but maybe a little bit too much. Particularly if I push that threshold up high, you'll see it will start to clip out words. Let's play this.
With the audio that they spoke on location.
So you can hear that gate is really clipping.
With the audio that they spoke on location.
And with the gate set too high.
With the audio that they spoke on location.
And you can see it's red for closed, green for open. So we're going to need to find out a sort of magic number, if you like. And that's using this little background noise and breaths that I collated. And you can go into Window in Audition, Amplitude Statistics. I'm just going to undock this so you can really see this. And then you can just scan the whole of this file, and it'll tell you the peak amplitude. So the loudest any of this audio ever gets is around minus 29 dB. So we know if we set the gate at minus 29 dB, it's only going to be muting out these sounds and nothing else. So let's go back now to our audio that we're going to run a gate over. We're going to pop that magic number in, minus 29 at the threshold. We'll leave everything else as it is. You'll see it's adjusted things now. But what you'll see here with the application of a noise gate is that we're going from lots of purple and red in the silent gaps here to lots of black, which means lots more silence. And let's play this back.
With the audio that they spoke on location. And this is why when you...
So that sounds a lot better than, say, a threshold of minus 10.
With the audio that they spoke on location.
And that's why it's so critical to really find that number that you want to plumb into the gate. Now, you can still get a little bit of minor clipping because of the fact that the gate is opening and closing really fast. So it's kind of cutting in and out. So every time the audio goes lower, the gate is trying to close. If you want to make that a little less aggressive, the main function I would suggest you look at on a noise gate is the hold value. So threshold is the first thing you set. Anything louder than that threshold will be heard. But hold is really important. It's kind of like adding oil or an extra springy hinge to your gate. So if you have the hold down at 1 millisecond, which is where it is now, right there, that gate is going to be, it's going to have a very tight spring, and every time it closes, it's going to go snap, 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 and it's going to probably snap some of your audio. If you push that number up to, say, 50 milliseconds, your gate is going to go zoom, zoom, like that, rather than it's going to go. So you can actually see this in action. If I change this to 50, Not much changes in terms of the noise gate working on the silences between the speech, but watch these lights as I play back.
With the audio that they spoke on location.
You'll see a lot more yellow lighting up, and what this means is that it's holding the gate just a little bit before it fully closes, and that will often stop that clipping sound that you get on speech. Okay, so far we've looked at online calls that we've been doing a lot of over the last year or so. We've looked at compression, EQ a little bit. We've looked at noise gating and things like that. How about we get more into reducing echo in your recordings and removing background noise? This is one of the big reasons that we're here. So I'm going to actually go back into Adobe Audition, close this all down, and head in and grab myself some really cool audio that we can work with. And first of all, I'll grab this, and I'm going to switch off the spectral frequency view for a second, and I'm going to switch off the preview window. So we've just got this speech. And this is a common issue you'll hear in this podcast trailer. There's quite a bit of background echo going on. Let's have a listen.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast, which for anyone unfamiliar is an episodic form of internet radio that will be available on demand, in which my visitors and subscribers will be able to conveniently access anytime.
So it's not the worst audio in the world, but you can hear that the podcaster there is recording in a room with a few reflections, probably not very well sound treated, and we want to get rid of some of that echo. So many different editors have different features for this. There are some great plugins you can use to reduce echo. In Adobe Audition, there is actually a native noise reduction effect called de-reverb here. And by using this and moving the amount from 0 to 100%, you'll hear echo disappear as if by magic from your recordings. That's why I love this effect, and I love using Audition because it keeps things really simple. There are other ways you can filter out echo, and we might look at one of those ways in just a moment. You can certainly use EQ as well to isolate the frequencies that have a lot of echo in and kind of pull those out. But this plugin has kind of intelligent machine learning that really works on your audio. So let's hear it in action. I'll play back again, and I'll fade from 0 to 100%. Obviously, 0 being no echo or reverb removal, and 100% being 100% removal. Let's try it.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast, which for anyone unfamiliar is an...
Now, obviously up at 82, 84%, we're hearing a dramatic reduction in the echo, much more studio sounding voice. There is one caveat with this de-reverb effect and many of these fantastic plugins, and that is it ever so slightly reduces the quality of the speech. So you have to go easy on how much you apply. It's the same with many noise reduction plugins that we'll look at it in just a moment. The more of them you add in general, the more it's going to degrade the quality of your dialogue. And obviously that's not desirable. So the way we do this again, much like we did earlier with the high pass filter, we'll kind of fade it up and then just fade it back and just find that sweet spot. So let's try again.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast, which for anyone unfamiliar is an episodic form of...
Hear how it's kind of phasing in and out when I get up to 100%?
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast, which for anyone unfamiliar is an episodic form of internet radio.
So I think about 55% is handling this really well. And it has another feature called auto gain. So obviously when it's doing its magic, it is actually reducing the gain, but auto gain then boosts that up. As you can see, it's done a 10 dB boost there to get this audio sounding exactly the same level. So you never notice that the audio got quieter because the plugin takes care of that itself. It's really a very fascinating and magic plugin. But again, you can use something, and let's actually open spectral frequency. We can see even where there are silences, there's quite a lot of sound here. And we can probably do the same thing. We can copy this into a new file and just find the basic noise floor and maybe where the speaker is taking some breaths as well. So we're going to do that. I'm just going to cut out that little glitch there. Just get a little bit of the background noise here so we can again find a magic number for maybe setting up a noise gate or something like that. So again, similar to just how we did it last time, Amplitude Statistics, scanning the file. We got minus 29. It's virtually exactly the same number. So I'm then going to go back and work on this by adding in another effect to my effects rack. And this time again, I'll go for dynamics. Make sure everything is default. Auto gate on. Let's pop in -29. Let's open the before and after view. And again, you can see how it's working. So we've already got some de-reverb.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast.
Okay, a little bit of clipping in and out, so I might increase the hold.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast, which for anyone unfamiliar,
Let's remind ourselves of how it started.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast, which for anyone unfamiliar,
And then with everything applied,
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast, which for anyone unfamiliar.
so a lot cleaner, a lot better, and really, really cool stuff. Now, stick around. We've still got about 15 or 20 minutes left of learning before we get into the Q&A, and I can see lots of questions coming in, so please do keep your questions coming in the chat. I'm here live, ready to answer any questions you might have about audio, podcast editing, making things sound as good as they can. Also, towards the end, when I've wrapped up on the main segment of learning, I'm going to do 3 really killer tips that will help you speed up your editing time. They will help you to restore audio you thought maybe is completely broken. And also, we will look at a really cool noise reduction technique that can work in some extreme examples when we have really crazy sounding audio. But for now, I'm going to hop back in and I'm going to show you one other thing, as well as using this auto gate here on the dynamics effect, which is like a noise gate. So whatever editor you're using, if you open up a noise gate, most of them will have threshold, attack and release, which can generally be left at the default there, and a hold. But some editors also have expanders, downward expanders. And again, this works quite similar to an auto gate. But the difference here, and sometimes you may prefer this to a gate, is that a gate is very open, close, open, close. If you find it's too clippy for your needs, you might want to go for an expander. And the difference between gate and expander, well, the gate is opening and closing, but the expander is kind of fading down and fading up. So just imagine you have a really talented audio producer with a robotic hand, like on the fader of the mixer, fading your audio down every time it goes quiet and then fading it back up every time the speech, much faster than you and I could ever do. So this is how that works. And again, threshold, we'll put in that magic number of -29. And then to get that fade, because you can see nothing's happening in this is the before at the top, this is the after at the bottom, nothing's happening here. When I increase the ratio, you're kind of telling it by how much do you want to do that fade down. So you see by 2, it's fading down a little bit. And this works in those situations where people say to me, well, Mike, yeah, that's all very well. You can set up a gate and you can get rid of all the background noise and even eliminate the breaths. But I think that makes me sound quite robotic if I don't actually have breaths in my recording. So some people say, I don't want to completely eliminate the breaths in the speech, but I'd like to kind of reduce their volume. This is where you might use an expander. So you see with a ratio of 2, it's made a difference down here at the bottom. Be looking at the silent spots. So on 1, when it's off, you see there's much more noise there. On 2, let's play back.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast,
and you can see every time it goes to a silent spot, it's fading down a bit. Now, obviously, if we go further up, if we go 4, you're going to see that fade going much more aggressive now.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast.
But you can hear it's now clipping in and out, so I might bring that down. Let's try 3.
I created this trailer to welcome you to what will be my podcast.
Still clipping a bit, so I'd go back to 2. So again, more of a natural sound, a bit of noise reduction, but works really well. So we've covered quite a bit there in that initial thing. Something I get asked a lot, and I think it would be a good idea now to go into multi-track again. We started, remember, in multi-track. I'm going to go back to multi-track, and I'm going to bring in a couple of clips. This is often how a podcast looks. I'm dropping in 2 tracks here. It's just going to import them. And here we've got a full interview. So we've got a podcast host and we've got a podcast guest. They're in the same room and they're on 2 different mics. And what we often get is we get issues with audio levels and the fact that there's a bit of bleed here, mic bleed, which basically that means that one mic is picking up the other speaker. So you're kind of getting that on both tracks. So let's remedy that. And also, I'm going to mix a little bit of music at the start of this podcast, and I'll show you a common problem that I often get asked, which is how to mix music with speech well so that one doesn't overwrite the other and you can clearly be heard. So we'll get onto that in just a moment. But let's just let's play some of this audio and have a little listen.
Well, hello, Linda. How are you today?
Hi, Jim. I'm great. Thanks.
Good. Thank you for coming on the Feel Good Running podcast.
Okay, so we've got that great audio. Now, if I solo over on Linda's track,
Well, hello, Linda. How are you today?
you can hear that the host is being picked up on the guest's microphone and vice versa over here on the host's microphone.
Hi, Jim. I'm great.
So there we go. So what we can actually do now, you know, in many instances, you might go through and you might spend a long time editing. So you might like delete the start of this, budge it all up to the start, and then you might go ahead by hand, look at this podcast and like edit out every single bit like this so that you've got all of that mic bleed edited out. And you go through and it's a real kind of manual task here. And there might be a little word there that you want to keep in and things like that. And so that you don't get any clicks and awkward changes, you need to do crossfades at the start and end of every track. And oh, isn't it so complicated? And wouldn't it be better if there is a different way? Well, there are a couple of things you can do. The first thing is in a recent update, Adobe Audition introduced delete silence into the diagnostics panel. You can now use this inside the multi-track. So you can go ahead, you can scan the audio like so and get some silence settings here. You can find the levels and then you can select trim long silent pauses. There's also a new preset that I don't have installed in my version of Audition yet that can delete all the silences from podcasts. It really is cool. But just to start with, let's scan for long silent pauses and see if it finds any. Maybe we'll go to, let's try that setting there, and we'll see what comes up. Okay, so we've got a few bits here, and we can strip those bits out. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked well because I haven't got the correct preset in there. But there are some great presets in delete silence that can actually delete the silences in between the speech, and it works tremendously well. But another way to do it is just simply to put a noise gate on each track, just the same as we've been doing in the waveform view, simply by finding that magic number and then silencing that stuff out. So I can do that very quickly here. I can go in and select this audio here, and I can use Amplitude Statistics to find the peak amplitude of this section, -24. Go in over here, go over to my effects rack, and I might say now that I want to put in a dynamics effect, and we want the gate, and we want that to be at -24 like that. And you should see that gate kicking in when our host stops talking.
On Maui in the middle of the Pacific.
Yep.
What brought you out here?
My husband and I decided we wanted to just have a different lifestyle.
Okay, so now you can see that gate's working on this track. Absolute silence. If I take the gate off,
Live someplace warm.
there comes the mic bleed back on, and it's completely eliminated. So really great feature to know if you want to spend less time editing your podcasts. More tips coming up. I'm going to look at, let's look at some background noise now, because I think that would be a very good thing to take a little look at. And I'm going to pull up a little example for you so we can have a little play with that. So let's grab in, let's see here. Okay, I'm going to bring in something with a little bit of background noise. So let's bring this here. And I'll go back into the waveform view. There we go. And then I'm going to just import it here. Okay, so this actually has quite a bit of audio that actually, do you know what? Instead, I'm going to use this clip because it's a little bit shorter, and should be a little bit easier to work on. So let's bring that in. Bear with me as it loads. There we go. Okay. I'm going to copy this to a new file, as this is audio from a video track. And there's some background noise going on here.
Your competition, looking at them as allies instead of, these competitors, these people that are doing things differently than me.
So you've obviously got some background wind noise going on there. Now, one way to try and reduce it is using noise reduction. And the denoise effect works the same as de-reverb. Again, 0 to 100%.
Your competition, looking at them as allies.
Now, as you can see in this case, the denoise is not working, and I'm pushing that right up.
Your competition, looking at them as allies.
And I can still hear the rumbling of the wind. So a really good way to eliminate it when denoise doesn't work. And denoise works tremendously well when you have fans and continuous background noise that doesn't kind of change too much in its sound, because noise reduction effects work really by learning the pattern of a noise and then removing that from the sound. But in this instance, with wind noise, again, I'd go to filter and EQ, parametric equalizer. And this is where what we learned earlier comes in so handy, because you can switch on high pass filter and you can just fade this up until the wind disappears.
Your competition, looking at them as allies instead of...
And now the wind is very much gone. The voice is a little thinner, but that wind noise has gone. Now, do bear in mind, as I'm moving this high-pass filter around, you will hear some clicking that unfortunately seems to be a defect of the parametric equalizer plugin in Adobe Audition, at least for me on a Windows PC. It may be different on Mac. But again, let's have a play with that again. So right down at the bottom,
your competition,
is wind.
Looking at them as allies instead of, these competitors, these people that are doing things differently than me, these people that are taking my audience.
And you see, as we get it to 234, most of the wind is gone. We can even see this in spectral frequency. Look down here, as you can see, the wind is represented by these yellow speckles at the bottom of the audio. But over here, those yellow speckles have pretty much gone. And that has been done by rolling on a high pass filter. So we'll do a few more bits and bobs. I'm really happy to field questions. I can see some questions coming in, so please post any questions you have right now in the chat. This is kind of your last 5 or so minutes to ask a question, and then I'm going to dive back in with Jonah and we'll take some of your questions, try and tackle some of those questions and help you out as much as possible. I'm also going to give you 3 killer tips just coming up at the end of this training in just a moment. And I'll tell you a little bit about my course. So if you've really enjoyed what you've seen so far and you want to take things further, there's a special on my course, which is available exclusively on Teachable. And there's a discount on that right now. So we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But let's hop back into multitrack. And I thought maybe just to finish up, we've already looked at reducing echo, reducing a bit of background noise, improving Zoom recordings, also improving things like noise pops, plosives, and so on. I wanted to look a little bit at mixing speech and music. And I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to record a sample myself and show you how this can work. So let's do so. Let's hit record here on this track. You'll see it's recording my audio. I'm just going to remove any effects here and we'll start recording. Let's just make sure that's set up. I might need to do it in waveform because it's waveform here. Let me a little bit better than multitrack today. Hello, this is Mike Rusell, and I am going to teach you now how to mix voice with music. So there's my speech. Now, the first thing I might do is make this a bit louder by normalizing it to -0.1 dB. That just makes it louder. And then we'll bring that into the multitrack here. And I'm going to place that at the start here. And I'm also going to bring in some music. Let's go to my media browser and we'll get, let's have a look here. Let's get some good music. Something that's not too busy, ideally. Okay, so that could be quite cool. Let's use that and let's bring me in around here. So often you'll have like a podcast intro and then the host will come in. Hello, this is Mike Rusell, and I am going to teach you now. Now, the issue you'll hear here is the fact that the music is too loud, it's competing with the voice, and you can't really hear what's being said. Now, the easiest way to kind of work on this is to zoom right into your audio. I'm actually going to hit Shift and E to get rid of the tracks I'm not using and zoom right in here, and then zoom in again using my scroll wheel on the time bar up here. And if I want to zoom by track, I just hover over the tracks to the left and I use my scroll wheel there so I can get a really nice view. So I'm going to go in, zoom in, get this right in on the beat here. And the first thing I can do is just use my tool here to paint on some keyframes and simply duck the music like that. Hello, this is Mike Rusell, and I am going to teach you now how to mix voice. Now that kind of works okay. That's definitely one way of doing it. We can go into Effects Rack. There's another cool effect here under Special called Vocal Enhancer, but don't be deceived, I'm putting it on the music track. There is a music setting here, and this will actually remove EQ sounds from the music that compete with the voice. So let's switch that on. Hello, this is Mike Rusell, and I am going to teach, and I'm just going to switch that off and show you the difference. Hello, this is Mike Rusell, and I am going to switch it on. Hello, this is Mike Rusell. And the difference is subtle, but it's pulled out some of the bass and some of the mids from the music that are competing with my voice. So that is one little hack when you have a really competitive music bed that's you're struggling to be heard over. Just insert that. Now, obviously, I painted on some keyframes there and ducked the music, but there's another more efficient way. If we open up in the window the Essential Sound panel, and we simply tell Essential Sound that this top track is dialogue, and see it puts a dialogue icon on it, and this bottom track here is music, and it will put a music icon on, but at the start, there it is. So now Audition knows that it's working with dialogue and music, and over here we can enable ducking, and you'll see how it fades this audio down. It's done what it thinks is a good idea. Let's play it. Hello, this is Mike Rusell. Now, for me, it's faded that down way too far and way too early, but don't worry, we can adjust things like that over here in these settings. So, for instance, the duck amount, I might say, well, I don't want to do a minus 18 dB duck. Let's do a minus 10 dB duck. Hello, this is Mike Rusell, and I am going to maybe make that a little bit more. So maybe let's make that closer to minus 12. Hello, this is Mike Rusell. And that fade I'm finding is happening still too early, so let's rein that fade in a little bit. Let's make it quick 54 milliseconds. Hello, this is Mike Rusell. And there you go. That's all done inside Essential Sound within a matter of seconds. You might see here that it's fading up when I'm taking breaths. Teach you now how to mix, and that might sound awkward, so we can always move the sensitivity around so it's a little less sensitive, or we can make it uber sensitive, so it's kind of like ducking and fading at every point, but you probably don't want that for a podcast, so you probably want to push that to the higher end of the sensitivity bar there, and it'll do less fades up and down in between your breaths. So that is pretty much it, but I still have my 3 killer tips coming up. We're going to look at a time-saving editing feature for the multi-track, also restoring audio you thought was completely broken, and also getting rid of those extra hard to remove sounds that, again, you never thought you could get rid of. Just before I get into those 3 final tips that will help you with your podcast editing and all that good stuff, I would like to show you on the screen now, if I may, a little bit about my course, and we'll probably talk more about this with Jonah in a moment, but it's available right now on Teachable Discover. I believe there will be a link available for you to take up this offer. As you can see, the usual retail price of my course is currently discounted for you only watching this video or the replay right now, and it's a time-limited offer for only 1 week. That will give you access to my full podcast production course where you can learn to edit your podcast as a pro, or maybe you're going into this as a career. Maybe this is something you want to turn into a full-time business and you want to work with lots of clients. This course will help get you up to speed with everything you need to know to make great sounding podcasts. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee as well, which is a fantastic guarantee here on the Teachable platform. And there are 3 fantastic offers for you that you'll get with not only over $200 off my course, you'll also get a tried and tested list of hardware that I use right now, not only to create podcasts, but to deliver this live stream to you. You also get unlimited amount of time to complete the course at your own pace, which is key. You don't have to rifle through it. You can take 1 week, you can take 1 month, you can take a year. The only thing I would say to you is make sure you eliminate distractions and take your time, and maybe bring in a notebook and stuff to write stuff down. I always find that's handy when I'm learning to do something like that. And finally, and I think this is really cool, usually I sell my Podcast Pro presets, version 3 they're at now, for $195. Well, that's also included in the price of the course. You get those free when you sign up to the course as well. And they are really handy, the Pro Podcast presets. In fact, I can just very quickly show you them in the multitrack. So I used a blank multitrack here, but if I start a new multitrack file, you'll be able to go to my Pro Podcast presets, and it gives you a kind of template here to work with different podcast hosts, different popular podcast mics, and also fix popular audio issues with podcasts, all in one easy to use multi-track session. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and do the Q&A in just a moment, but I want to give you these 3 killer tips that I've been promising you. So let's go ahead and do those right now. So we'll just start a new podcast session here. And I wanted to show you, I had that wonderful interview. Let's get that interview back that I was working with earlier. And we'll put them on the tracks here of my podcast presets. Now, often you need to go through and cut out loads from your audio. So you see I've got host 1 and host 2 here. You can delete and just budge up and, delete. You can look in and get silences wherever silences are occurring, and you can just delete, but you have to delete both tracks, and then you have to select the tracks after and budge up. Well, if you're not already using this to edit your podcast, or you didn't know about this, this is going to be definitely a game changer for you. Selecting, say, a silence here that I want to eliminate, right-clicking and looking for ripple delete. And what you want is time selection in all tracks. Remember the shortcut, Control, Shift, and Backspace. Or on a Mac, it would be Command, Shift, and Delete. And if I select that, boom, it not only deletes, but budges up everything. So ripple delete is a really handy way to get rid of silences. You just simply select the silence on one track here, Control or Command, Shift, Delete, boom, and it's done. And again, you can rifle your way through this multi-track session, Control, Shift, Delete, and it's budging up. So ripple delete, that's my first killer tip for you. Second killer tip, I'm going to go in and grab some audio here. Let's bring in some audio that you might think is broken. This often happens when you're recording. Oh my goodness, you can probably already see the problem with this.
And my bow was renewed in my hand. In ancient times...
Okay, so you can hear this audio. It's clipping a little bit. And I'm just going to bring in a short version of that now, because this is a very long file. If you actually look at the full file here, I'm going to bring that in. It's a massive file, and it looks completely ruined and completely distorted. Well, Adobe Audition has a fantastic option to make that all better. And I'm just going to go back now to this little tiny clip. And what I'm going to do is go to Window, Diagnostics, and we want to look for Declipper. And we want to restore heavily clipped audio. Scan, it's going to show me where all the peaks are in the audio. And then you just click Repair All, boom. And that audio is...
My glory was fresh in me, and my bow was renewed in my hand.
So maybe just a little bit of artifacting, but already the declipper here in Audition has done an amazing job. And just finally, because I know I'm running out of time, I'm going to bring in this little audio clip here. Let's make that a little bit bigger so you can see it, and let's have a listen.
But they haven't really thought it through. So anyway.
Okay, you can hear a parrot squawking away in the background there. Adobe Audition has a fantastic feature. We looked a little bit during this session at spectral frequency display. What this can quickly do is it can show you sounds of the parrot. So if I actually use the paintbrush tool and select where I think that parrot is, which is this yellow line here, and play it back, we have isolated the parrot.
Thought it through.
And what's more, we can use this little spot healing brush tool. It's like a plaster with a dotted line around it. And I can actually go ahead and paint out that parrot from the speech, just like that. And I'm going to do a couple of passes and play it.
Really thought it through.
And now
they haven't really thought it through.
It's virtually silent. You can see up here, there's like a kind of secondary frequency going on with the parrot. So I'm going to paint that out a little bit. And paint out again just around here. Number of passes can help with that, and
but they haven't really thought it through.
And that parrot has pretty much been eliminated right into the background. And if I were to work harder and for longer, I could probably pretty much eliminate that parrot completely using the spot healing brush tool. It's kind of like content aware fill for Photoshop. It's a really great thing. If you don't know about it, you can get rid of all kinds of things. I mean, I've got other things here, which I won't demonstrate because it's the same.
And we are live.
Like a phone going off in the background can be eliminated. And there's also a tool called Sound Remover.
And then it sort of really took an urban turn.
That can actually completely remove like sirens from audio. That's actually possible. But, you know, maybe we'll talk about those at another time. So there you go. That is pretty much it for my online training. I'm ready for some Q&A. And Jonah, it's back to you.
Hey, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Holy heck, you covered a lot of stuff there. Also, that being able to visually draw those paintbrush tools in the Spectrum is pretty rad.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Did want to we have a couple questions coming up. And for everyone watching, continue to drop any questions you have into the chat here so we can make sure to get Mike while he's with us. I did want to ask a couple questions about your course real quick while people are still throwing a couple questions in there. Sure. First, I think you said that's lifetime access for that course, right?
Correct. Yes.
And is there like a community? I know a lot of courses include that, or access to you as far as resources outside of the course that come along with that as well?
So yes, absolutely. When you join the course, you get access to a community. We have a community, and there's also a closed area in there with only people who are in the course who are talking amongst each other and helping each other out. And I'm in there too. So yeah.
Nice. Awesome. And then just because I looked at your website before this all started, and you have a lot of really valuable resources and stuff that you offer for free or even downloads that people can find there. Would you call out your website for everyone just so they can write that down?
Thank you very much. Yeah. So the website is musicradiocreative.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's get into some. I'm going to kind of hijack this question a little bit, but Norma was asking, are you going to discuss synchronizing audio and video? I obviously, we didn't in this event today, but I was curious, either do you go into that at all with your course, / if you do any of that, is there somewhere where people can learn that from you, or do you have some good resources for going that next step if you're starting to get into video and audio together?
Absolutely. Well, I can give you a quick example now in Premiere. I can actually I can drag in some audio. Here's something I prepared earlier. I can drag in this audio here, and I can drag in quality audio. So often this happens, you know, when you've recorded on the camera's audio and you've recorded on your maybe condenser mic or whatever you've got in front of you. And as you can see, they're out of sync here, but I put claps in at the start of here so I can synchronize. Now, the old school way would be to drag this and kind of try and sync those claps up. But actually, Premiere Pro, which is kind of the companion to Adobe Audition in the Adobe suite, has a very simple function where you can right click, select synchronize, make sure you've got audio selected, track channel 1. So it's syncing this audio to the audio on channel 1. Click OK, and boom. It's as simple as that, Jonah. In Premiere Pro, at least.
I love that. Well, and that is it is a big attraction for me to the entire Adobe suite, is just how easy it is to move back and forth between all those programs.
Yes.
Cool. So we had another question from Andre here. Should I use the noise gate to remove breaths before pulling the file into the MRC presets for the male voice, which was saying he loves?
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Andre. And thank you for the great question. So the answer is yes, absolutely. You want to do, what I would suggest is that you do all of your noise reduction and all of your improving of any problems in the audio before you go ahead and do things that presets will do, like, for instance, compress, EQ, and, you know, draw things up. If you don't remove or reduce the breaths or background noise, what presets with lots of compression and EQ will do is drag all those problems up. So rather than getting rid of them, they'll highlight them. So yeah, definitely a good idea to do some noise reduction and maybe, you know, breath reduction or gating before you go ahead and and use presets or use anything like compression or EQ.
I'm going to tag on to that question a little bit. And I know if you can find a million Reddits where this is a hot debate, but do you typically work in order of using plugins, or are you committing your noise reduction and edits to a final piece of audio before you start adding compression and that kind of stuff?
So are you asking me, do I usually write the edits to the file, or do I do them destructively and non-destructively, or
basically? And this is branching maybe a little bit outside of Audition in itself as well, because other programs or other DAWs will function a little differently. But for example, you can use noise reduction plugins and then do your compression, or are you writing that noise reduction to a new file that then you are? Does that make sense? Where you're actually committing it to a brand new audio file, so that new audio file has that noise reduction built into it.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you say, there's many different ways of doing things. What I usually tend to do is put all the plugins into one big effects rack. And the reason for that is if I'm working in the multi-track and it's non-destructive, meaning I can go back and make changes later, I have the possibility to go back in time and change something if something didn't quite work out. So if I wrote a change to a file and brought it in, I'm working with that file and I can't undo the noise reduction. Whereas if I have that plugin in an effects rack and maybe I get later on down to another effect and I realize, oh, I didn't quite clean up all the noise there, or I'm not quite happy with where I set that. Or like, for example, when I was demonstrating earlier with the de-reverb plugin and a noise gate, I actually found after I applied a noise gate, the noise gate sounded pretty good, that actually maybe I could have gone back to de-reverb and backed it off a bit more. So therefore kind of preserved a bit of the audio. So, but yeah, many schools of thought on that, but that's what I do.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And that's why I was curious. Yeah. We got one more question I think we have time for here today. Memory is asking, when recording audio with earbuds, headphones, are there ways to improve the sound before editing?
Okay. So, I assume what Memory is saying there is like you got some earbuds with microphone in or something like that.
I'm assuming that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So the audio quality would be pretty low to start with. I mean, one of the things I'd say with using stuff like, I don't know, Apple AirPods or things like that, you are going to get a slightly degraded quality. Some of these devices are pretty good now. The microphones in them are pretty good, but they won't replace like a condenser mic or a lav mic or something like that. So what I'd say is you can't really put back any frequencies that weren't recorded in the first place. But you can certainly go and do some basic compression and EQ to sort of enhance or pull out any harsh frequencies. But just what I'd say is just go easy on it and just do it ever so slightly. I know what Memory means, because often it's the case that maybe you're the host with a nice microphone, but you're bringing in a guest who's just using their iPhone or something like that. And you can, compression and EQ really are the best ways to go there. But you're never going to get a studio sound from something like earbuds with a mic or a mobile device. They're getting better, but there's so much that you can do, but not everything, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and to tag kind of one more question onto that, because there are all these, I think there's also the question of what service you're using to capture the audio if you're doing so remotely. And I'm curious, do you have a preference of Zencaster or Zoom or a combination, or is there one you typically fall to that you think has the best quality consistently?
Oh, yeah. Recently, I found Riverside FM to be pretty good for doing those remotes. Reason I like it is they seem to have got the perfect balance of obviously great audio quality. We're talking here about doing a podcast where someone's dialing in from the other end and you want their audio in the top quality possible. What software like Zoom will do is kind of compress it all into a very small, kind of almost low bit rate file, and it doesn't sound great. Whereas, services like you mentioned, like Zencaster and Riverside, They are very good at getting the local copy of the audio, uploading it for you, and piecing it together. And also, I really like the fact that they've got video integration as well. So I think that works well if you're a video podcaster too.
Cool. Appreciate it, Mike. Well, yeah, I think that's all we have time for at the moment. Thank you so much. I appreciate, I feel like you shared a lot of valuable information today. Appreciate you giving that. I would like for everyone who's watching, please hop in the comments. Thank Mike for giving his time and giving us so much valuable information. If you like videos like this, please like and subscribe to the Discover channel. We're trying to bring creators like Mike here as often as we can to give valuable resources and offer such interesting courses. Mike, just one more time, going to call out his course is available for just 1 week for that discount price. The link will be emailed to you, but it is also available here in the comments or the description of the video. And before we end this live session here, I did want to ask you, Mike, if you have any last kind of parting words of advice for those coming into the podcast editing space. I know it can be intimidating when you're just getting started. So maybe anything for those who are starting that journey.
It can be, definitely. I would say just get started. We've never had as good opportunity to create something amazing and put it out there as we do today. There's no barrier to entry. It is very much a meritocracy. So you can create something. And I really encourage you to go and just start recording. And don't worry too much about the audio tips and tricks and the improvement. You can work on that as you release more episodes, but really go and record something, put something out there, and start getting feedback in the real world, because it's only when your content is out there can you start to improve. And it's really, summed up by the simple phrase, progress, not perfection, really.
Love it. Love it. Well, appreciate you so, Mike. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Jonah. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.